We're going to start our session. This is about Filipino Americans, Pinoys, during World War II. And I want to welcome to the front my co-presenter, Alan Bergano. Come on up. We're going to do some brief introductions on who we are. First of all, my name is Jackie Jamero Bergano. I'm from Kent, Washington, and I'm part of the FANHS chapter, Greater Seattle. And it brought tears to my eyes when they said, thinking about our FANHS family members, because my parents aren't with me today. They're Peter and Teresa Jamero, founding board members of FANHS. So I take them in my heart with me today, and blessed to see everybody able to make it here today. Wanted to also briefly share with you, I'll be presenting in a bit, and I'm going to talk about the Alamo Scouts. I'm not military. My background is in public health, behavioral health, but I'm sharing a story with you about what it was for me to discover that my father-in-law, Juan Bergano, was an Alamo Scout. So more on that. And I want to thank my husband, Richard, for being here today and supporting me. Alan, want to introduce yourself? So we're going to do introductions now. Go ahead, you're next.
Okay. Alan Bergano, Seattle, Washington. Born and raised in Seattle, Washington. My father and my Uncle Johnny, who you guys, Uncle Juan, he'll be up there. They came to this country in the 1920s. So we've been here for a while, and I'm glad to see you folks here to listen to a history that has not really been told. So we're gonna hopefully open your minds, because there's a lot of half-truths that is being taught in Filipino American history classes today. So you guys will be hearing a different perspective from what you have heard or even learned. So glad you're here. Enjoy yourself.
All right, we can get started with the Alamo Scouts. And wanted to say thank you for those of you too also who completed the poll. We'll be sharing some of the responses to the polls. I'm going to share about the Alamo Scouts. And a lot of the information is based from the Alamo Scouts Historical Society. They've been an invaluable resource for me. And the information I'm sharing too is from my father-in-law, Juan Bergano's documents, his personal diary, and other documents he had about his time in the service. So today we have a brief amount of time, but I hope to share a little bit of what I've learned about the Alamo Scouts. First of all, this is the U.S. Army's 6th Army Alamo Scouts. How many people are familiar with the Alamo Scouts? Great. So we could share amongst each other too about the Alamo Scouts. The information about Alamo Scouts is pretty recent. Their information was classified until the late 1980s. So more is coming to light, including some books, films, and other documents. One thing I wanted to point out is that they're a special force. Are there other special forces that you're aware of that were part of the U.S. military? Yes?
Merle's Marauders, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th Ranger Battalions. So,
Awesome.
plus the teams that were built in MacArthur's headquarters, that the Coast Watchers that infiltrated the Philippines to work with the Guptas.
Awesome. And you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jeff Acosta. I live with Alan. We're down in Virginia Beach, and I was the curator at the MacArthur Memorial for 11 years. So there's a lot of information in the MacArthur Memorial in Norfolk about the Alamo Scouts and the other groups that fell under what they called Alamo Scouts fell under 6th Army. The other guys that infiltrated by submarine, they belong to called the Allied Intelligence Bureau. And they're kind of like Green Berets. They trained guerrillas.
Yes, so that's another name probably more familiar to many of the younger people, Green Berets. What's another secret special force that you're aware of? Any others that you could think of? How about Navy SEALs? So these are the special forces that included volunteers like the Alamo Scouts. I'm gonna go ahead and move forward, but again, the information is from the Alamo Scouts Historical Society, and I've had contact with Lance Cedric. He's his historian and author. And also there's some really good books out there, like Shadows in the Jungle, the Alamo Scouts Behind Japanese Lines in World War II. And you have your handouts on the HUVA site, hopefully you received it, and there's lots of resources on there, references toward the back. I mentioned that a little bit about my background. Just want to add that I was born in Sacramento, California, and my dad was in the U.S. Navy. From the poll that many of you answered, you have relatives too. Raise of hands. Any of you? Yeah. So I heard from the poll, there were other Navy people, relatives, U.S. Army, and USAFFE. I had to look that one up. Are you familiar with that one? Yes. United States Armed Forces in the Far East. There were also nurses that served during World War II. My father, just wanted to mention, he was in the Korean War. And if you get a chance, there's some beautiful memorials. We had a chance to go visit the Korean War Memorial and the World War II Memorial. Have you been there in Washington, D.C.? Awesome. It's much recommended. So here's my story. We always knew my father-in-law, Juan, was in the service, but we didn't know the extent. After he passed in 1990, his eldest son, Elmer, was able to find the documents, including a personal journey of what he did during the war. And initially, as the U.S. Army, he was part of the 1st Filipino Infantry, and then he volunteered and became part of the Alamo Scouts. So this shows exactly his services, and he was in the Alamo Scouts. He started and entered the training center in September. It's a 6-week training, and he graduated in October. Then he stayed and served as an operative as an Alamo Scout in the Southwest Pacific for about a year. I wanted to share a little bit from his journal, and it was as follows. I was lucky to be one of the guys to go for a harder training. This was then located in Hollandia in New Guinea, north tip of the British territory in New Guinea. Riding in C-47 was then an exciting moment of life again, because I thought before that I will never again ride in an airplane. If I do, pay lots of dough. Well, this was it, my second time. Took the training the day after our physical test. The training in the Scouts was not bad at all, except in the PT, where most of the guys had a hard time. The problems for the training was interesting on the scouting along the beach, the boat landing and race, but the worst of it was the problem when the ocean was really rough. In this case of training by beach reconnaissance was bad because we lose 2 men died of the big swell waves. So those were the only known people who were in Alamo Scouts training program who died. After that, of all the missions, the 9 classes of Alamo Scouts, not one Alamo Scout died during combat or was captured. Wanted to mention that this unit was formed in November 1943 by then Lieutenant General Walter Kruger. Do you know the Alamo? And anybody been there? The Alamo? Yeah. Well, this has nothing to do with the Alamo and that conflict back then. This basically, again, World War II, but Lieutenant General Kruger was from Germany. He settled in San Antonio, and he named his larger troops of 60,000 in the U.S. Army the Alamo Force. And then when he decided to form his own Alamo Scouts. That's why he named it that way. And it's because there was quite a bit of intermilitary conflict between the Army and the Navy. And there was one mission where there was a small ad hoc group that was on a mission, but it didn't go well. They didn't pick up the amphibious scouts until 11 days past their pickup time. And the men were starving and suffering, and after that, this is what the general said, to hell with it, I'll form my own reconnaissance unit. So that's how it all started. And this gives you a little bit background on when it started, and they went until the Alamo Scouts disbanded in November 1945 in Kyoto, Japan. So their time was toward the end of World War II. Footnote at the bottom, it's approximately September 1939 through September 1945 that the war happened. For those of you maybe not as familiar, here's a map of what it looked like during the World War II Pacific Theater. And the yellow is the Allies. The blue area is the areas under Japanese control. And you could see where the different battles was. Look over there on the far right. My far left is Pearl Harbor, for example. And there's a lot of the different areas Alamos worked in, including New Guinea and the Philippines. Right here is Brazil. My father-in-law, he was in the war in New Guinea as well as throughout the Philippines, including on Leyte and Luzon. The organization of Alamo Scouts. Basically, there were 138 Alamo Scouts selected, and they were assigned to 21 teams, approximately 6 to 7 men per team. My father-in-law was on the Chandler team. What's interesting is that it was a big recruitment and selection process. Hundreds tried to volunteer to be in this ad hoc unit, but it dwindled down. There are 325 who went through the academy, the training, and only 138 were selected to be part of the Alamo Scouts. Like I mentioned, their information was classified until the late 1980s. And in 1988, they received the Special Forces Shoulder Tab. They were the Army's first long-range surveillance unit. I thought it was also very relevant how diverse they were. Basically, this pie chart shows that in the maroon, that's about 80% were white, and others that I'm not didn't have the catalog for, but we do have about 10% were Native Americans and 10% Filipino Americans. During the selection process, they did things like interviewed them, and then after they interviewed them, if they wanted to be part Alamo Scouts, they would stop them at the door and ask them questions like, oh, by the way, what were those 20 objects on the desk when we were talking? And some people didn't notice anything. You're out, because we need you to really know what's going on and be aware of your surroundings. They found that a lot of the Native Americans and Filipino Americans were able to distinguish and pick up on their surroundings. And for Filipinos, they had the culture and as well as the language to be able to speak in different dialects as well as English. So I think that also helped to ensure that they were included in these World War II efforts. Wanted to mention there were over 100 different missions that they took part in behind enemy lines, and I've listed a couple of them, for example. They were able to liberate 197 Allied soldiers in New Guinea who were prisoners of war. And there is the combined efforts of the Alamo Scouts, Rangers, and the guerrillas, who are Filipino, who were able to liberate and save 552 POWs. Excuse my pronunciation, maybe you could help me, but that was in Kawanatuan? Okay. I am a third-born Filipino American, so I'll try my best. And so these Alamo Scouts and other military units involved received many medals, and the Alamo Scouts were awarded silver and bronze medals for their heroic efforts. I'm going to show you now one of the videos that will highlight what they did in this raid. Have you seen that before, the video? Oh, there's a wealth of information now, YouTube, and also on the Alamo Scouts Historical Society website, and those links are provided in your handout.
They're on the legendary Sante raid.
Excuse
Fast
me.
forward to
And we'll go to the next slide. This is a list I put together after consulting with Lance Zedrick of the Alamo Scouts Historical Society. And what was found is that 27 of the Filipino Americans who were graduates of the Alamo Scouts Training Center. That's 27 out of the total 325 of graduates of that training center. So Filipino Americans were 8.3% of that total. When it came to those that were deployed, the number was even higher, 10.1%, or 14 of the Filipino Americans were retained for operations in the Southwest Pacific. And this is a 2-page document, but basically those that are bolded, they went to the Southwest Pacific to serve in places like New Guinea and the Philippines. The other ones that are unbolded, they still completed the 6-week training, did well, but they went back to their original units. For whatever reason it might be, by preference, or it could be that they took their skills back to their own units. I've updated this list recently. Unfortunately, there are no more Alamo Scouts that we know are still living. One of the last living people was Terry Santos, and I'll show a little bit about him later, but he was quite the hero, and he ended up, after his service, going back to San Francisco. So he died at the age of 96. I'm sharing with you some pictures of the Filipino American Alamo Scouts. And this was in November 1994. And it was on Summer Island in Leyte. They had a mission. And if you're interested, it's all captioned, but Balombao's standing. And the next one, next to him is the team leader, Rafael Elito. And on the bottom is Juan Pasis, and in the middle is Stanislaw Bakat. And this is in in Leyte. So near and dear to my heart is my father-in-law, Juan Esperon Berganio. And so this is a list of some of the citations and awards. I'll let you look over it. And wanted to share a little bit from his diary. And he's talking about February 1945. He had a hike to Baylor. It took us about 4 hours to reach our observation post. But prior to that, we stopped on our way for lunch. We stayed by the beach in little shacks, established our radio station, ready to contact the headquarters of the 6th Army. We were not successful in the first contact, but later we did communicate with them. The purpose of our mission in Baylor was to take the situation of the Jats, my apologies, but that's how it was written at the time, around that area, and to reconnoiter in the area for an air base and naval base for the future in the Philippines. and he stayed in Baylor at least 3 weeks. These are the medals that we found in his possession, and the last one was awarded in 2016. His sons, Elmer and Richard, were there for the ceremony in Seattle in 2016. He had long passed since he died in 1990. His son, Elmer, put together an exhibit of some of his medals. And that's where he was in his younger days. He was one of the older scouts. I believe he was 34 or 36 when he completed his service training in the Alamo Scouts. Here are a couple of other Alamo Scouts. Captain Atancio Chavez is the one on the left side. He was an instructor. And then in the two over is Rafael Rocky Elito. And this was also from Leyte, where they were photographed. On the picture here, Thomas Ciason is on the left. He was one of those non-retained scouts who went back to his original unit. And then the one on the right is Honorado Chavez. I'm doing my best with names. And he was with the Nellis team. Oh, they had some quite rescue efforts, including at Cape Barry. And basically, in less than 30 minutes, 13 Alamo Scouts, they killed 18 of the Japanese enemy in 3 locations and released 66 prisoners. And they were awarded Bronze Stars for that. This one is Rafael Elito, graduated from Westport in 1943. He was an Alamo Scout team leader, and he served in high-ranking positions in the Philippine Army. Also the Philippine government. You could see he was ambassador to Iran, Thailand, and national defense. Terry Santos, I mentioned, went back to San Francisco, and he had basically done a lot as an Alamo Scout, and he was also in the 11th Airborne Division Reconnaissance Platoon, lead scout there as well. He had 3-year service with the military, including the Office of Strategic Services, OSS. Have people heard of that? Yes. And if I'm not mistaken, that's like one of the precursors to the CIA. Okay. So here's his major awards. He had too many for me to list, but these are really honorable service he had, including Purple Heart. He was one of the last living Alamo Scouts that we know of, and attended many of the Alamo Scouts Historical Society meetings. So it was nice. He was able to be appreciated because for a while, no one knew what an Alamo Scout was.
What was his rank
His rank?
during World War II?
I don't know if I have that. I just know he was a lead scout, but that's a great question. Oh, it's probably on the original page. I could answer that for you in a bit. The 2-page listing has all their ranks. Okay. Last but not least, I'm going in alphabetical order, was Rufo Vacalar. He also was in that rescue I mentioned, where they saved over 60 people at Camp Aronsbury, and he was also in the Great Cabanatuan Raid and received Bronze Stars for those efforts. I am going to wind up a little bit here, but I wanted to really recommend, if you're interested in this area, to join the Alamo Scouts Historical Society or visit their website. For example, I'm a member of this organization, and they have lots of magazines, including, this is from one of their recon magazines they have online, and it counts many of the numbers and statistics and stories. And it was just 2 nights ago, I kept reading and finding out, oh, this whole article is about the Chadley team. That's the Chadley team where my father-in-law served. So I'm still learning. It's just amazing what I've been able to find out about the Alamo Scouts. So here's a 2-pager for you. And it has trivia too, including this is the only known unit where there are 2 brothers serving in the Alamo Scouts together. And also one of the Alamo Scouts, non-retained, but he ended up being a professional wrestler. And then there's some stats in there too about their missions. They were able to save nuns and missionaries in one of theirs. So amazing efforts. And here are some references and resources for you. So that's my time. And I want to make sure we have time for Alan. So we'll take a short break for us to switch. And then as time allows, I'm happy to